In today's episode, how to clean vulcanite stems in a gentle way. Hello pipe community, welcome to Barepipe episode 7. Today we're going to talk about how to go from this to this. Let me put them next to each other. You can see the difference between an oxidized stem and a deoxidized vulcanite stem. This is a GBD that I bought recently, and you can see it's pretty nasty. Stem is kind of a nasty, kind of yellowish green brown with kind of crusty bits here where people's mouths go. If you leave a vulcanite stem for long enough, that's how it's naturally going to go. The reason is vulcanite has sulfur in it, and the sulfur reacts with oxygen and moisture and oxidizes, and it moves to the surface of the vulcanite and gets kind of nasty. So how do we remove that? How do you get back to this without losing the kind of detail markings like the Joby logo here? This one is a Parker. It has a really, really faint marking there, so it's even a little bit of sanding is going to take off. Or something like this is a Rob, which you have a partially damaged logo, quite deep imprint, but you have some paint that's left in there that one wants to preserve and use to reference a new paint to rebuild that logo. So the secret is to use a method that is predominantly chemical as opposed to mechanical. Mechanical means you're using some kind of sanding or micromesh pad to mechanically remove the oxidation. That also removes vulcanite and also removes logos or markings over time. So there are some methods you can use to get it to this state, a nice dull black without any mechanical interference on the vulcanite, or a little bit. I do use one of these X-Acto blades to scrape off the really kind of crusty bits a bit, and I'll show you how I do that. But beyond that, it's a purely chemical method. You don't remove any vulcanite. You get it back to a nice dull black like this, and then you're ready to shine it up with a micromesh patch and get it to a nice deep mirror finish. So let me show you how I go about that. Before you actually get into it, and there's a technique to doing this, is I usually scrape off the worst, like these little bits. I scrape that off with an X-Acto blade. Now be careful when you do that. Don't scrape with your blade into the vulcanite. Turn your blade backwards and just scrape away from the edge of your blade with the blade like this, and just scrape off the worst of the material that's going to bolt on this, especially in the areas where people, be patient with this, take your time. Usually in these areas where their mouths go, you can get quite a bit of crud that builds up. I start by just scraping that off, and like I say, I'm scraping away from the edge of the blade, really using it almost like a reverse, so that you don't end up, if you do it like this, you're going to dig into the vulcanite and you're going to create more issues for yourself. I've already scraped this one a little bit, so there's not too much left on it. And then these little edges, I usually just take the tip of the blade and just kind of run through there a bit and just get that edge. So I create a bath of OxiClean. I use warm water because it melts the OxiClean powder quite quickly. This is the product. It's OxiClean. It comes in powder form. You just mix it per the directions, and once you've got it all melted up, just want to make sure, yeah, it's good. You just go ahead and pop these guys in here. And I'll just throw those in too. And you're going to let it sit for a couple. You can already see how it's starting to go brown immediately. Look at that. But we'll let it sit for a couple of hours and just let it soak. Now for the next step. They're out of the OxiClean, they dry. you can see there's still a little bit of discoloration here on the Parker. The Rob and the Joby looks pretty good. They're black. And the next step is where the magic happens, literally. We're going to use some of this Mr. Clean Magic Eraser. This stuff is amazing. You need a bit of water. I'm going to take some of this, and what I do is I cut off a little bit. Make it wet, and we're going to start wiping it down. Actually, wiping is not the right word. Rubbing it down. And look at that. So these stems are now ready to be repaired where they need to be repaired, like in these guys, this Joby stem here, where you have a bit of a collapsed area on both sides over the draft hole. That I need to build up. I cannot sand it down because it'll get too thin, so I need to build that up. I want to show you how I do that. And then I got to sand it back down. This one is pretty rough, actually. The surface is quite textured. I think this had a bit of a hard life. The Parker is in great shape. I think with a little bit of light sanding here at the mouthpiece, I'll be able to get rid of any of the chatter that's there, and then very delicate buffing around the top end of it, just to bring the shine back. It's actually really recovered nicely. We haven't actually lost any of the definition in that delicate Parker logo. The ROP, a little bit of tooth chatter there, but again, I think enough that with a little bit of light sanding, I can get it out. And then with this one, the biggest challenge is what looks like just a little white blob there is in reality supposed to be two interlinking circles that was done in white. I have to reinstate that and repair it, and I'm going to use some modeling paint that I use for fine scale modeling to do that with, and fill it in, and then we'll have to sand it down a little bit to get it to be just within the recessed area. So all that's left is for me to say thank you. Thanks for watching. Thanks for the comments. Please keep them coming. It encourages me to keep on going. And I hope you enjoyed the video. Until next time, goodbye.